So with this very brief introduction, I want to introduce our first speaker, Associate Professor Karin Bradley from KTH. Karin is Program Director of MISTRA Sustainable Consumption, and she has since 2 decades done research about what it means to live sustainably. Please, Karin, share your presentation and the digital floor is yours. Perfect.
You can see as well. Yeah.
Yes.
Nice to be invited to this occasion. And I'm a researcher at KTH, and I'm director of this program. It's a transdisciplinary program on sustainable consumption, where actually Karolinska Institute is one of the partners. And we are doing research primarily on how to facilitate and sort of upscale sustainable consumption practices. But today I'm going to talk about a little bit also how the views and interpretations of sustainable consumption has changed during the years, because this is a field that I've been active in since the early 2000s. I wrote my PhD dissertation on what it means basically to live environmentally friendly. Eco-friendly was the concept used at that time primarily. But this talk then has a subtitle, From Buying Eco Products to Building Alternative Systems of Provisions, and I will explain what this means. Primarily my focus will be Sweden and examples primarily from Sweden, and also the picture of how we in Sweden live or do not live in sustainable ways. And this is an image kind of showing this kind of self idea of Swedes as leading this work. This was a project called Symbiocity. It was a private public partnership with the then Swedish Trade Council, or so the export promoting body in Sweden, that were launching or trying to basically sell Swedish products and green technology through this concept Symbiocity, and the byline was Sustainability by Sweden. And they used this graph to basically show this is what Sweden has done. You know, we've increased our GDP, had continued economic growth, and at the same time lowered our CO2 emissions. And this is, of course, was really appealing for countries like China, Russia, and so on, where we were marketing lots of our sort of green tech, sort of building on this story. And basically the notion was that, you know, yes, follow us, we have lots of competence and technology. But this was also something that I've been highlighting in my work, and also in the work of PhD students that I've supervised, Anna Hult, for instance, that in this image of Swedes being the best in terms of sustainability, there was nothing about actually the size of our material consumption. So this image that we had decoupled was largely based on only measuring the CO2 that appears within Swedish boundaries. So nothing of material consumption that has been imported, the effects of flying, size of homes, the effects of second homes, etc. Or in general, the effects of Swedish consumption abroad. And this is something then, because it's just interesting to note, when I was doing interviews in the early 2000s about eco-friendly living and eco-friendly consumption, there was very little awareness. Almost, I think, none mentioned the effects of flying. Whereas today we have lots of debate about flying or non-flying, or cutting down on international air travel, because we know that that's such a large share of our individual sort of footprint. And this is an image showing, if you then consider all the kind of consumption-based emissions. We are around 10 ton, use 10 ton CO2 per capita per year, and we are, if we are to reach the Paris Agreement, we need to go down to around 2 something, or even less. So that's actually, we really have a long way to go there. And in this research program, Mistra Sustainable Consumption, we did during 2018, and it was finished in 2019, a mapping of, so what does it mean to consume sustainably within the areas of furnishing, home furnishing, eating, and vacationing, because these are the 3 focus areas we have in our program. And we gathered around 700 examples of this using a questionnaire that was distributed to people engaged in kind of sustainable consumption, but also trying to get it kind of outside those that are specifically interested in these issues. And it was examples from all over the world, but primarily focus is on, say, the richer world. We know that people with little resources, if you have a very, very tight budget, and if you live in a poor country, you do consume much more sustainably. Perhaps you consume too little. But our focus here is on how can we in the rich world basically consume more sustainably. And you can find this online. They are written in Swedish, but there are lots of examples also being illustrated. And we also clustered these 700 something examples in terms of food. What kind of practices can we see? But I will not go through the clusters, but if you're interested, you can read those in the reports. But we try to make a kind of taxonomy out of these examples, and this is what I'm showing you now. So you can basically think about sustainable consumption in 3 phases, and one phase would be the sort of buying phase, when you decide when you are about to buy a product or a service. And another one when you're using the product, and the third, which is about what kind of relationship you have to the enabling of the product or the producing. So to give you some examples here, so when in terms of buying, this is the more traditional kind of image. If you say sustainable consumption to whatever person on the street, they would say it's about, buying eco labeled clothes or something. So that could be buying eco labeled meat if we use here the food sector, or in terms of furniture, buying secondhand furniture. And it could also be about products or services entailing better social impact, because actually, I mean, at least in our interpretation, sustainable consumption means also considering social and socio-economical effects of consumption. So it could be about buying fair trade coffee, or buying local economy, for instance, because that's an important thing, to have a vital local economy or local producers of things. But it could also be a decision to buy less, so not buying the right product, but buying less, in fact. So maybe you skip meat entirely, or you cut down on that. Maybe you do eat meat, but not as much. And you buy less, for instance, products to your home. And in the use phase, then, it's also about how you take care of the existing. So, for instance, sustainable consumption of food, or sustainable food practices is also about, could be like cooking from leftovers. That's become a lot highlighted in media, and lots of famous chefs that show how we can actually cook from leftovers, or from from parts of either from animals or vegetables that we usually kind of throw away. But it can also be about caring and maintaining the stuff you have, for instance, then in terms of furniture, so that you make, you know, the products last longer. Or there are different ways also to share, rent, swap, borrow products. So you don't perhaps need to buy, but you can get access to products or services in other ways. So there are these, for instance, apps for sharing leftover food. For instance, there's this app called Karma. And I know that on certain kind of university campuses, I think at KTH, we've developed an app to share leftovers, because on campuses there are this, you know, often there have been events and there are leftovers, or there's been dissertation, whatever, gatherings, and there's leftover cake, and there's actually lots of people there, so you can have a very kind of local food sharing system as well. I don't know if you have that at KI perhaps also. And also you can rent stuff that you don't use all the time. There are several now companies within the furniture sector that are experimenting with the kind of renting business models. And of course, there are other sectors where this has been used for decades, actually, like in terms of cars, car sharing of different forms and renting. But then the area also where the title of this talk goes more into is about how does then the product appear, you know, how can you as a consumer, as a citizen, also engage in terms of co-owning or co-managing the resources. So for instance, in terms of food consumption, it could be about joining a food cooperative. So not only buying, you know, from the standard store, but actually enabling another form of infrastructure of provisioning here. Or join a repair cafe, etc. And different forms of doing it yourself or doing it together. So growing food, becoming a, you know, not self-sufficient perhaps, but growing a few vegetables or whatever, spices or something. I mean, on your own, or doing it together. Join a community garden, for instance.